Welcome to a Prevent Connect podcast, where we explore the prevention of violence against women. This is a project of the California Coalition Against Sexual Assault.
Welcome to another Prevent Connect podcast, where we highlight new research, emerging trends, and exciting efforts in sexual and domestic violence prevention. Since 2015, Reliance has awarded $2.3 million in grants to communities across the country. With a bold vision of ending sexual violence in one generation, Reliance grantees are working to prevent sexual violence perpetration and change culture by thinking creatively about community-based solutions. Today, I'm excited to have a co-host. I'm joined by Julie Patrick, the National Partners Liaison at Reliance. Hi, Julie. How are you today?
Hi, Ashley. Doing great.
Julie, today we're going to be speaking with Sarah Diamond. Sarah is the Lead Prevention and Community Engagement Specialist at the Center for Community Solutions in San Diego, California, or CCS for short. So I know CCS was a recipient of a Reliance grant, and I think we'd both love to turn to Sarah and learn more about the project the grant helped fund. So first of all, hi, Sarah. Welcome.
Hi.
We'd love for you to tell us a little bit about what the program is and who you've been working with.
So our program started with us working with incarcerated youth at a juvenile detention facility. And through that work that we had been doing, we noticed that there was a greater need for us to reach the other juvenile detention facilities in San Diego. And so through Reliance, we were actually able to do that. And so the topics that we talked about with these young men were healthy relationships, media, gender norms and social norms, consent and boundaries, and bystander intervention. We felt like this was really important to work with this population because they are vulnerable and they are often witnessing so much violence and just perpetuating that violence over and over again. And so we wanted to break that cycle.
So, Sarah, I know that a lot of our listeners probably have experience working with youth in school settings, but kind of bridging off from that last question, I'm curious to hear from you about what it was like to bring this type of programming to youth who are currently incarcerated.
Incarcerated youth are my favorite population to work with. They're just very honest and they don't hold back. They are students at the end of the day, they're youth, and so we really want to demonstrate that we respect them as youth, as students, and not as incarcerated individuals. And I think that was really important to build the rapport with these kids who don't have a lot of trust in adults to begin with because they've been failed by adults time and time again. And so they just don't have a lot of folks cheering them on. And so we wanted to be the champions for them.
Sounds like that approach probably really enhanced what they got out of the program.
Yeah, I think because we approached it with such humility and respect, they knew we weren't coming in just to lecture them. And it quickly spread throughout the institution that the work we were doing was cool.
So switching gears just a little bit, what resources have been helpful in planning and implementing this work?
I didn't read books when I first started, but I listened to the folks who had been doing the work before me. And so I shadowed, I observed, I listened, and I took everything in as a new educator because I wanted to make sure that, again, I was approaching them with respect and humility. And so I don't know if that's necessarily a resource, but that idea, that way of thinking really sat well with them.
And it really sounds like maybe the greatest resource was recognizing the humanity. That's so basic, but unfortunately, that gets lost a lot in many ways. So, Sarah, I'm wondering if there's one thing that you would point to as a success in this work.
I had a student at one of our juvenile detention facilities, and he was really tough. He was very, very bright, and he pushed me and he challenged me in ways, and he was released. And so I ended up seeing him maybe a few weeks later, and I asked him how he was, and he just started talking about his life and his girlfriend, and he mentioned CHARM, which is an acronym that we use to talk about healthy relationships. We say you want to charm your partner and have your partner charm you, and he remembered it. I was just so impressed by him. So I think that probably was in October, and around November, I had seen him at a mall, and he was so excited to see me. He introduced me to his partner. I introduced him to mine, and it was a really cool experience to see a student outside outside in the real world. I had invited him to come to our Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month event, and he showed up with his girlfriend, and they volunteered at our event. And so I haven't seen him since then. The last I heard, he is at a local community college and doing really well.
So, Sarah, how about lessons learned? What would have been helpful to know going into this work?
I think knowing more about their experiences around relationships and like how the community views relationships. So really meeting them where they're at and validating those experiences and calling them in at the same time. That would have been really helpful to know in advance of like, this is what to expect.
And that's the thing, prevention work really takes a lot of flexibility and accepting that we don't have all the answers. And sometimes what we plan to do has to change due to a lot of different variables. So I'm wondering if, given what you all have learned, did you shift any of the work?
Yeah. So jealousy was something that we saw time and time again was coming up. So we started to focus a little bit more on jealousy and bringing our whole selves to our relationship. We also started to include love languages, and they really enjoyed learning about their love language. And then one of the more recent things that we started doing with our other incarcerated kids is we are now screening the documentary Feminists on Cell Block Y, and they use feminist theory to talk about the patriarchy and how that has led them to being incarcerated. And I felt like I can meet my students where they're at and I can hold space for them, but I've never been incarcerated. And so I showed them the documentary not to scare them. It was more about these are grown adults who have had similar paths to you all. It was incarcerated men talking to young incarcerated boys.
I'm going to have to get two things from you, a link to where we can get more information on Feminists on Cell Block Y, and then also your resources for love languages. First of all, I want to know what mine is, but I think that our listeners might enjoy that as well. So we'll make sure that we have access to both of those. Julie, I want to pass it over to you. What questions do you have for Sarah?
Yeah, thanks. Evidence building is so important for prevention programs, so I want to ask about evaluation. How do you know you're having impact?
Anecdotally, we hear it, but we also did do pre- and post-tests with them, and we really assessed how far they had come between those times. But I'm also listening for the comments that they say in the classroom or the comments that they write on their post-test.
So segueing just a little bit, having collaborations and partnerships are so important to doing this work. Can you talk a little bit about any that grew out of this project?
The girls' juvie ended up reaching out to us, and they were really excited. They had heard about the work that we were doing, and they were like, we want our girls to have this. And so now we have a partnership with the girls' rehabilitation facility, and we do ongoing groups with them.
So, I'm convinced, but I'm sure your listeners are too right now, Ashley, that this obviously can be replicated. So how could others do that? What would replication look like in anyone's community?
I would say, first and foremost, if you're looking to work with incarcerated youth, you want to create relationships with probation or the social workers that are staffed there. Those are like really good folks to have as support. And so we went online and pulled up all of them and wrote them all individual emails. I would also say that if you're looking to work with incarcerated youth, don't do this with preconceived ideas of incarcerated youth, and understand that these are students at the end of the day and that they are a different population, but they shouldn't be treated as criminals. And then, of course, as always, being willing to adapt as you go and ask them what they want to know, what would be useful to them in their relationship.
Okay, so say folks aren't quite ready to do that replication, but they're still interested in impacting a system that interacts with youth. What could be a concrete action they could take?
So if parents are listening, I would say reaching out to the school that your student goes to and find out what are their policies around sexual harassment, sexual violence, relationship violence. Find out like what organizations are on campus talking about healthy relationships or consent. And if there aren't organizations, is the school providing prevention education? For folks who aren't parents, I would say reaching out to youth serving organizations and finding out what are they doing to prevent sexual harm. Do they do any form of prevention education? How can they get involved if they're interested. Really fall on your community, though, to lead you, and don't reinvent the wheel. I think there are a lot of folks that want to do this work, which is amazing, and we need more and more. But find out who's doing that within your community and how you can get involved, and how can this be branched out to you.
Thanks, Sarah, for taking time to talk with us and share about the work that you all are doing that the Reliance Impact Grant helped to support. And Julie, I'm really grateful for having you as a co-host and for everything that Reliance is doing to advance sexual violence prevention and end sexual violence in one generation as your vision is. So thank you both so much.
Thank you. Thank you both for this opportunity, and thank you to Reliance who helped fund this. We really could not have done it without you all, so thank you.
Thank you for listening to this Prevent Connect podcast. Prevent Connect is a project of the California Coalition Against Sexual Assault, with funding from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The views presented on Prevent Connect are not necessarily the views of the United States government, the CDC, or CalCASA. To learn more about Prevent Connect, visit www.preventconnect.org. For more information about CalCASA's mission, or to show your support, visit calcasa.org. That's CalCasa.org.